someone gave me a hanging punching bag, and of course, as you won't find this surprising, but I was punching it with boxing gloves on, which I love. I'd like to just walk around with those on all day and punch things. It makes me happy.
Therapy.
I would appreciate her using your punching bag also instead of me. Because I'm the punching bag right now. So if we could find another one to substitute, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I nudge him and hit him all the time. I'm a toucher, I'm like, look at that, and I hit him. He's like, stop hitting me.
Is that what you call it? Yeah. Touching? Is that what you call it?
Welcome to the KnifeWife podcast. I'm Suz, married to Bob Terzuola. This podcast is about couples who live, love, and work together. And has little to do with knives. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the KnifeWife podcast with my partner in crime, Bob Terzuola.
Hi.
Say hello.
Hello.
Still living in San Diego, living the dream. And we're trying to bring some non-toxic media to people because I am tired of all the stuff I get in my feed on social media. I don't even listen to the news anymore. That's Bob's job. Anyway, today's theme of the show is brothers, and we haven't had a theme yet. And we also have with us today Pam and Clyde Morgan, who own Sunny Dojo in San Diego. And Clyde is I hope I'm right, Clyde, black belt Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes, you
That's
are
correct. And Pam is a graphic wonder?
Black belt in graphic design.
Black belt in graphic design. Okay. Anyway, so I was going to start off today with a story about my brother, which I think Clyde has heard.
Yes, love this story.
When I was about 5, I always waited for my brother to come home from school. He was 11 years older, and so I was always waiting for him to come home to school. And he walked in the back door, and on his hip was a baby chimpanzee wearing rubber pants and a diaper. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Really?
I was like, is that, yeah. I was like, is that a chimpanzee? He said, yes, it is. And he said, some friend of his, he said, he brought it home. And he said his mother wouldn't let him have it. So I said, well, I'll take it. And he said, you know how much these cost? And my brother was very cost sensitive about everything. And so it's such a deal he got bringing home a baby chimpanzee. And in those days, in the dark ages, you could buy a chimpanzee. You could buy lots of animals that, thank goodness, you can't buy. Anyway, so I'm like, oh, and I was like touching him, and he had these his hands and face were still pink. He was very young. And so then my mother came around the corner, and she said, what the hell is that? And I said, it's a baby chimpanzee. Larry brought him home. Can we keep him? My mother said, absolutely not. It'll eat the cat. Find the cat, hide the cat, lock the cat away. That thing's going to kill our cat. Well, at 5, I didn't understand this. I just thought this was the coolest thing that ever happened in my whole life. So my mother said, well, you're going to take it back right now. And I guess the place where it came from, it had already closed for the day. And I think it was our local pet shop. But, at 5, they told me they were bringing it back to the pet shop at one point, and I thought, and so that was probably like, the goldfish went to swim in the ocean or something like that. So anyway, so my brother was sent to his room, and I followed, and in my life, I was sort of, Cinderella. Susie will take care of it, even at 5, and so he said, well, I got to go out with my friends. So he leaves me in his bedroom with this baby chimpanzee who's scared. But he thought I was kind of his size, so I sat on the floor, and he crawled on my lap, and he wrapped his arms around me, and then I would look at his fingers and open his hands, and I was fascinated. I think I looked at every part of his body, but then the smell began to permeate my senses, and I was like, what is that? Oh, he pooped in his diaper. Okay. Oh, Larry didn't bring any other diapers. Huh. Can't go ask Mom. She's not going to like this. So Rollo, we called him Rollo, and I'll tell you why later. I put him on my hip, and we walked down the bathroom. I got a couple of hand towels, and changed his diaper with diaper pins and put on the rubber pants.
No Pampers in those days?
No Pampers in those days. Those had not been invented. I think there were diaper services, and diaper service guys were kind of creepy. Anyway, so I go into the bedroom with Rollo, and I'm in heaven. I don't care if we eat. I don't care. But then I'm thinking, what are we going to eat? What does, monkeys eat bananas? That's all I could think of. And, of course, we didn't have bananas. So I was like, I have to feed this thing, but I can't leave the room. My mother said I have to stay in the room. So I just waited and played with him. And he would sleep. He would fall asleep just like any new baby sort of would. He would just fall asleep. And he always wanted to be close to me because they like to hang on to something. And so eventually my brother came home. I said, we have to feed him. We have to feed him. What are we going to name him? He says, we're not going to name him. He's not going to stay here. I have to take him back in the morning. I said, well, what are we going to call him? I don't know. So my brother brought some food up. I don't remember. He brought like lettuce and an apple. And the moment Rollo had the apple in his hand, he pitched it across the room. And he was kind of waking up. He was kind of a night owl, but I didn't know this. I didn't know anything about chimpanzees. So eventually my brother went to sleep and I stayed in his room. I went and got my pillow and made a little bed, and I was going to sleep with Rollo, and I changed his diaper again, and I was going through our hand towels, which would not please my mother. And so I was sort of nodding off with Rollo, and all of a sudden I hear this crash, and Rollo literally is swinging from the curtain rods and pulling the curtains down. Then he sees books on my brother's shelf, which I'm sure those were the last books ever to be on his shelf. He wasn't much of a reader. And he threw the books. He started throwing them around the room. He started ripping the books up. I'm like, oh, my God. He destroyed my brother's room. And I didn't really sleep that night because Rollo didn't sleep. Maybe he fell asleep a couple times, but I couldn't go to sleep. And my brother slept through the whole thing. It was like nothing was happening in his room. It was amazing. And then he started on the clothes, though. At one point, and my brother was still awake. He goes, no, keep him out of the closet. He can't ruin my clothes. I'm like, okay. So anyway, he was fascinated. I had buttons on my shirt, and he was fascinated with the buttons on my shirt. And so he would, snuggle up to me, and he would like play with the buttons and sort of nod his head out and go to sleep. And then I would sort of relax and be about to sleep, and boom, he would be up again. Anyway, he destroyed the room. And morning came, and sure as shooting, Rollo went downstairs with me, and I had to hand him to my brother, and they took him back. I don't know where they took him back to. And later that night, my father was, we were at the dinner table, and my father said, what a stupid thing, and, why don't ever do that again, and whatever. And my father made this funny face. And we looked at each other, and we said, Rollo. We called my father after the monkey's name for the rest of his life. We always referred to my dad as Rollo. And my brother would say, where's Rollo? Or is Rollo home? Or what did Rollo have to say? And my father hated that. And no one knew who we were talking about. But in our family, we gave a lot of nicknames. So anyway, so that's my brother's story. And to this day, and they used to be able to go to the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, and there was a baby zoo, and you were able to sit if you were well behaved, and at that age I was. And I would sit with them, and I learned all about chimpanzees once after we had a visit from Rollo. And of course, I went to school and I told the kids, oh, well, we had a chimpanzee in our house last night. No one believed me. No one. So, and a lot of things happened in my childhood. I realized that when I told these kids at school what happened, nobody ever believed me. That didn't really happen to you. Well, yeah, actually it did. But anyway, so that's my brother's story. Anyway, our guests are Pamela and Clyde Morgan, who I adore. And I spent every 2 days a week with Clyde. He's a great teacher. And I think you guys met both doing graphics for a company in New York. Is that right?
Correct.
Tell us
Yes.
how you met. One of you, tell us how you met. Or how you noticed each other.
Okay.
Clyde was mooning the office? No, I don't know.
Exactly. I had just moved out to New York. Well, not just, maybe 3 months in or so. And I was applying to several places looking for any graphic design job, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this company was looking for someone to hire in their art department. I went in for an interview, And I believe, if I remember correctly, he remembers the skirt I wore.
Ooh. Is that true,
Maybe not
Sensei?
because of the look on his face.
Well, it's her fancy skirt, so
Yeah.
I remember
The
her
skirt
wearing
I
her.
don't wear all the
I
time
remember
because it
her
was
wearing
an
her
interview.
fancy skirt.
Her fancy skirt. Okay.
Yeah, and it's long, by the way.
Yes.
So
Okay. All right.
yeah,
Okay. Well, that's good for a job interview, I think.
yes,
Especially
it
if
was
you're.
appropriate.
Yes. There we go. And then when did you meet? How did you notice Clyde? Was he in the interview?
He was not in the interview, but I went to the art room because there was a room for the art department, and he was the first person that you would see when you walk into the room.
I see. Isn't it funny how art departments, they always lock us away?
Yeah, right? They
We're
always
not allowed
put
to
you
be with
aside.
other people. Oh no, we're put them.
You aside over
Yeah.
here.
At Leo Burnett, they put me on they put us on the 17th floor, and nobody wanted to get off the 17th floor.
Exactly.
So okay. So then after that, how did you develop a relationship? Because it seems to have been more than work.
Yes. So during work, we would joke around in the art department anyways. So I think we would get to know each other that way a little bit. And then there were company gatherings, parties that they would throw, I think once a month or something like that. And then that's where, alcohol gets involved.
Ah, the lubricant.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. History is made.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And so then you guys, all right, so you're a couple. And then how did you get to San Diego?
I am originally from LA.
Mm-hmm.
I came down here for college. I went to San Diego State,
Mm-hmm.
and I was quote unquote bored of this lovely weather and life.
I'm going to go to New York where people are
Yeah,
suffering,
so
where miserable, where everything's a
said
struggle. I want it.
change. I needed a change. I wanted a challenge. So, and it was a dream of mine since high school to live in the city. So I made my move. I had a couple friends that lived out there at the time, moved in with one of them, and yeah, made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I figured, young, single, no, nothing tying me down. So got to make the move now before I regret it.
Exactly. And so then how did you get, because Clyde has not just lived in New York. Clyde has quite a history. He's lived all over the world.
Yes.
So how did you get him to come west?
He enjoys jujitsu, surfing, and skateboarding, and San Diego is sort of a mecca for all of those activities.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and he was tired of winters anyway. So, and his brother had moved out to LA not too long before we moved out here too.
Okay.
So
I see.
little,
And
yes.
and Clyde, being from Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
New York could get really old really fast, I bet.
Yeah, I think maybe after 2 or 3 years there, I was done with winter. So,
Yeah.
and I was there for almost 9 years.
Yeah, I had 42 years in Chicago. How many years do you have in, you
And
left.
the winters there are worse.
No, I left New York when I was 22, right after college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went down to Guatemala or were down in the Peace
Panama.
Corps to Panama. Yeah, that's a lot warmer. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I was a slow learner. It took me 42 years to get the heck out of there. And then I stopped in Albuquerque on the way, Santa Fe on the way to California. But once we got here, my kids I don't even visit our kids only May through October. Once October 1st comes, there could be a snowstorm. In May, my grandson's birthday is in the middle of May. It snowed on his birthday half the times I went there for his birthday. So I'm like, nah, it's not for me. So anyway, okay. So you get to San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
and then how did the dojo come about?
So I knew that Clyde had wanted to teach again, and the plan was to do this when we were retired. But COVID hit, and we weren't doing anything. And then there were a bunch of kids running around, getting in trouble, climbing over fences, getting into other people's pools. So Clyde was like, let's try and see if we can find people who want to do this. And so we started looking for spaces to rent out, but weren't really successful. But we found the rec center, which is right behind our complex. And we started out there. We rented a room from them.
And you had to schlep everything in and out of there, I bet, right? 'Cause you have
Oh my
mats.
goodness, yeah.
Clyde's
So we started
smiling.
with what? Four rollout mats, and it eventually became nine mats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So then you sort of outgrew that space, right?
Yes. We couldn't stay open as often as we'd like because of their schedule. So we started searching some more, and luckily found the place that we did through another couple that is also in the fitness world.
Uh-oh, I need their names.
Yes, they are V&A and Derek of Earn Fitness.
Earned fitness?
Correct.
Like you
Yes.
earn a living? Like you earned the body
Yes.
you got?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You got to work for it.
Yeah. That's what I learned. 3 days a week I'm in there.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, Clyde wouldn't believe me now. I got muscles that I didn't even know were still alive.
I believe it.
You woke them up.
I did. No, really. I can plank for 4 minutes now. I can do things I could
Whoa,
never do before.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I know. It's
awesome.
unbelievable. I did it. My son called me one day and he said he was talking about getting in shape or whatever. I said I just plank for 4 minutes. My trainer timed me. He said, "What?"
Yeah.
He said, "I don't
That's
believe it."
really
So
good.
we're going to see him in Atlanta in about 10 days, and I will
Nice.
plank for him. I will plank.
Oh, great.
I'll put on the plank show.
Make
have
sure
to
he
have
timed you.
You have to
Oh,
have
yeah.
a plank off.
Oh yeah, plank. Oh no, I win. So yeah, and maybe his girlfriend. Maybe I don't know. She's a badass. But anyway, so okay,
I'll be the referee,
you'll be the referee.
There you go.
No,
Perfect.
you'll be timing.
the timing referee, whatever, just as long as I don't have to plunk, whatever it is.
And you know what I envision when I do it? I envision being at the beach and watching the waves roll in. And I don't know.
Keeps you calm.
It does. It just keeps it's my happy place. And so all of a sudden it's like 4 minutes. I'm like, what? So anyway, so back to the dojo. So anyway, so you're looking in your neighborhood or around
Yes.
where you've been. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And V&A of Earn Fitness, they had also been looking for a space too, because they were actually holding classes in their garage and couldn't do that any longer. Came up to us and asked if we wanted to rent out the back space of our current unit because there was a wall up. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do this. But they needed a space by the end of that month, and our landlords work way too slowly for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Landlords tend to do that. They have their own time, space
Their own
continuum.
schedule, yeah.
Mhm.
We had looked at the place in September and didn't get keys until mid-February.
What's your rush?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we had been looking at that place for quite some time
Mhm.
Yeah.
because literally just looking at it because we would walk by and it was empty.
Mhm.
There were no
Yep.
for lease or any there's no signage or coming soon.
Yeah.
So we figured, okay, if there's no like for lease sign, something's going to happen here.
Yeah.
And for over a year we would walk by and see nothing.
Mm.
So in the back of our mind we were imagining what the dojo would look like in there.
Yeah.
So
you sort of cast your spell on it and it waited for you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm a big
Came to
believer in
fruition.
that. If
Me
you see
too.
it, it will come.
Mm-hmm.
That's how every house we've lived in, everything I've ever done, I visualized it first. I know it sounds
Yes.
hokey and people don't believe it, but I don't know. The universe is listening, I guess.
Yes.
Nice.
So anyway, so you got the keys in February.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there that day, I think.
Yeah. We finished classes at the rec center on February 14th. The next day we were in classes on the 15th at our current space.
Fantastic. And I know you took out a wall at some point. I remember that.
Last
Yes.
summer.
So we put up plastic barrier
Mm-hmm.
to contain the debris when we were removing the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that was done, to cut down the plastic curtains, so to speak, I used my handy Bob Terzuola knife to cut down the plastic. I have to send you that.
Good for you. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's
Yes.
cool.
Yes,
Yes. Well, I'm glad it came in handy.
it sure did.
Yeah. Good. So you work together. Pamela, did you expect that you would be running a dojo at this point in ever? Is that anything that crossed your mind?
No, not until we had discussed that Clyde wanted to do to do it. And then like when during COVID, it just became more, and we were discussing it more, it became more and more apparent, like, okay, this is going to happen, or this is what we're going to do.
Okay. And so he does the teaching and you do everything else. Well, I see him cleaning, so I know he does other things too.
But yeah, I do. I'm like behind the desk, I guess, so to speak, and
on the mats,
admin.
on the mat sometimes too.
I try to be.
Not as much as she used to be lately, but that's
Got
just
a
for the time being.
7-month-old.
Yes.
Yeah, you have a little baby. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't or wouldn't even think of doing it without her. So
okay. Well, that's
going
great.
into it, yeah.
Yeah, you told me that a long time ago, and I really loved hearing that. So how did you name the dojo? Tell me that
Oh, boy.
story.
So we had quite a few names. Let me actually find. I have a file that has name options. Oh my goodness, look at these names.
Oh, these are all your names. Go ahead. I only have 2, so this is
no,
great.
Mesa Academy was my favorite, so I'm not gonna.
You
And to me,
lost.
that could be anything. It could be
Yes.
for like, X-Men and women, like superhero, superpower people.
That would be fun. How to be a superhero. That could be your next gym.
Yes. You want to tell them your favorite?
No, tell them all of these
No,
wonderful
I don't want
names,
to
and
give
then I'll
all
tell
these
my
names.
2
This is
horrible
too
names.
many.
Lead them off quickly.
Give me 6.
Oh my goodness. Two Trees Jiu-Jitsu, Mesa Jiu-Jitsu, Morgan Jiu-Jitsu, DJ Dojo Jitsu,
That's easy to say.
JJ?
Dojo Jiu-Jitsu.
Wow.
Blah.
I'm not familiar with some of these.
I don't know how I came about with
Oh boy,
these
this
names.
one is, I'm glad we didn't use it. SM Jiu-Jitsu.
S&M Jiu-Jitsu? Well, that's a
For Serra
whole
Mesa
different ball
Jiu-Jitsu.
game.
So my 2, one was WU, like Wu-Tang Clan, Wu-Jitsu.
Woo-jitsu. I kind of like that.
Wu-Jitsu. Kind of rolls off the tongue, but got vetoed, but not as bad as the second one. Keep in mind, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu around the world, so it's hard to find names that weren't taken, and
Okay.
URLs and social media. So the last one was Cobra Claw Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, and that's so Clyde.
So Clyde, but vetoed.
Cobras don't have claws.
Well, that's the whole point.
See,
That's the
there
whole
you go.
point.
And then you remember it, right? Because
Right.
Cobra Claw, what? No.
Yeah, it's
no
like
way.
chicken fingers. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
So,
All
yeah.
right. So then how
And,
did you get to where you are? It doesn't sound like either names, any of the
It's
names.
very far from Cobra Claw and S&M Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Definitely.
So, the dojo where I used to teach in Brooklyn, the name was Sun Dojo. And then being here in sunny San Diego, we figured Sunny Dojo. And we looked and the URL wasn't taken. So we asked my professor and he said, yeah, go for it.
And for those who don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, because I knew nothing until I met you. Now I'm, such an expert. But
Yes.
your professor,
Yes.
what is it? I'm thinking you're back in college. Tell us what that means.
Yes. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at black belt, you're considered a professor of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the Portuguese professor.
Ah, okay.
And yes, so they're currently in Carmel, New York. They moved upstate during the pandemic and opened up Grail Jiu-Jitsu.
Ooh.
Yes.
I picture Monty Python with the coconuts
And the
following
Holy Grail.
behind. Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Oh, anyway. Okay. So you asked for his permission. He said,
Yes.
sure.
Yep. And here we are.
Here you are. And it's Sunny Dojo SD on Instagram, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Thank
And
you.
then sunnydojo.com for your
Yes.
website.
And I have one of their T-shirts.
Oh,
Bob
yeah. It
does.
looks great on you, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, it's gold and black, which I've designed a lot of T-shirts for a lot of shows that I worked on, and I loved gold and black,
Awesome.
gold ink on black. So anyway, and I call you Sensei, and
Yes.
and you call Bob Sensei.
Yes.
They just call me by my name and you by your name, right, Pamela? Because what do we know? Anyway, what else, Bob? Did you have anything else you wanted to ask them?
I just wanted to clarify a little bit. Jiu-jitsu is a little bit, as I understand it, it's a less aggressive form or attacking form of martial arts than something like karate. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so karate is mainly stand up and striking, where jujitsu is the groundwork of judo and grappling.
Mm, okay.
And Brazilian jiu-jitsu was, brought to Brazil from Japan and developed. Brazilians always like doing things their own way.
Yeah,
So
I know that about some of the ones I know.
We know that, yes.
so they developed their own style of jiu-jitsu, which became popularized in the U.S. by the Gracie family
The Gracies,
and the
yes.
UFC. Yeah.
Yes, I know someone in Chicago who's being taught. Because she met you, you walked into a room, and for people who don't know Clyde, I don't know if Pamela felt this way about him when she met him. He has a dance background, and we could have them on again, and you could tell us those stories. But
Yes.
he has a posture when he walks in a room and a calm and a presence that I was just telling our producer, Zeke, I said, when you meet him, it's sort of like everybody took Valium in the room. They're like, oh. And, he talked me off the ledge many a day when he was teaching me. So I appreciate that. So, and that's
Good.
great.
I'm glad.
I did want to mention that Clyde, in addition to having his black belt in jiu-jitsu, also has his black belt in computer work, and that's what he trained you in.
He did.
For how many months was it? 6 months? A year?
No, a year.
A
1
year.
year. He signed on for
Twice
a
a
year
week?
with me twice a week.
Yeah.
You won't even do that.
No, I wouldn't do that. I had no idea, but totally lost when it comes to computers. But Clyde was good enough to train you and teach you a whole bunch of, what was it, Illustrator?
He did teach me Illustrator. And this
Illustrator.
summer I will be back at it because I'm designing a whole new
Yes.
collection. And I'm sure he's going to hear from me, and maybe he'll come out a couple times and just.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
I miss those sessions.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Clyde and Pamela are a triple threat:
They
graphic
are.
design,
They are.
computer work, and jiu-jitsu.
That's right. That's true. And Pamela does all their social media videos. And
Yes.
I have to admit, I stalk you sort of on Instagram. I'm always watching them. And so he teaches all ages. And I'm not as interested in the adults. I don't know why, because adults do this. But when I see these kids, I see this, this black belt teaching these kids like warm-ups, and they're doing sort of jumping jacks. Or I don't know what you call all these names.
Yes.
And at one point you had them holding ropes together and they had to be a team. And, which anyway, I love seeing him do it, and they love him and follow him. And then probably my favorite picture or video was I clicked on it. And here's Clyde's head under someone's leg sticking out. And usually he's on top in all the videos. This was the first time we saw him on the floor. He's like, oh, I didn't see that one. I'm like, well, it was pretty funny, actually.
Yes.
Anyway, so I love that. And so if you want to really be entertained, I don't know, and if you want to do this, if you're in San Diego, I can't say enough. If we were closer, I probably would be there because I'm very attracted to your punching bag for the kickboxing and the. Years
Thank
ago,
you.
someone gave me a hanging punching bag, and of course, as you won't find this surprising, but I was punching it with boxing gloves on, which I love. I'd like to just walk around with those on all day and punch things.
Yes.
It makes me happy.
But therapy.
I would appreciate her using your punching bag also instead of me, because I'm the punching bag right now. So if we could find another one to substitute, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I nudge him and hit him all the time. I'm a toucher, I'm like, look at that, and I hit him. He's like, stop
Oh, is that
hitting
what you
me.
call it?
Yeah.
Touching? Is that what you
Touching.
call it?
I did have a hanging bag, and I'd seen cartoons where the bag hits the guy in the face and whatever, but I was not thinking that would happen to me. I thought that's just on cartoons. The first time I did it and punched that thing and got it going, it smacked me right in the face, sent me flying.
Oh,
Yeah, that was probably the end of it. And but I would like one of those. I wish they had one where we worked out. Anyway, we could go on forever, but I won't. I have to thank you for being with us. And anybody who's in San Diego, please check them out. They run a great place. I can tell. Everybody's having a good time. I can see that in the videos. They just are. I don't know if Pam's editing them or not, but pretty sure.
No, those stories are live.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, and Bob has a story about his brother, which isn't, and Clyde has a story about his brothers too. Let's have Clyde go first.
So I'm gonna start with my first week here in the U.S. as a 6-year-old with my middle brother, the
And how
youngest
old are your
one.
brothers?
So my brothers are 2 and then 7 years apart. So the youngest one is 7 years younger than myself,
Uh-huh.
and the middle one is 2. So the youngest one wasn't born yet,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the middle brother, Juna, and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we moved with my parents here to the U.S. And my father had a job teaching dance at UWM University in Madison when we first arrived.
That's a nice hop
So,
from Brazil. Holy
yeah,
molies.
in the middle of winter.
Oh, yeah,
I
been
can
there.
still remember. I still remember the smell of snow or winter, if there is such a smell.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and our first snow, it started like, it was flurries, and they're like, oh, well, it's snowing. My mom said it's snowing. I was like, oh, cool. I can't wait for like the real snow, like the big snow to come, because my only reference was Babar books, the elephant, Babar the elephant.
And
And
you
the
were well
illustrations
read
were
too.
these
I
big,
like that.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. They were big, like round, puffy, snowball size snowflakes falling from the
Sure.
sky. So a little disappointed, but anyway, plenty of snow. It was really cold. My grandmother had knitted my brother and I hats and gloves, mittens, really. And I was a little disappointed because they were mittens and not like gloves with, all the digits. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Got to start
we
somewhere.
did got to start somewhere. All these ideas you have in your mind as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we arrive, and it was our first week here in the US. This lady from the university is showing us around. We were staying at her house for a day or two. So middle of winter, staying at a stranger's house who had about 9 cats,
Oh,
if I
boy.
remember correctly. Yes.
Oh, boy. And you're
So
allergic to cats, right?
what's that?
You're allergic to cats, right?
I am, but
Yeah.
Not at the time, apparently.
Not until you stayed there.
Exactly. There we go. So the night before this happened, the story, right? We were walking about, and I think we saw some kids with sleds, and there were those like kind of rectangular 2-people sleds.
With runners on the bottom?
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
No?
It was just a thin plastic, and they
Oh.
had yellow handles on the side. So a set for the person in front and a set for the person in back.
Mm-hmm.
So just long enough for 2 people to sit.
Yeah.
So they bought us a sled. Awesome. But they didn't take us to a hill. It was the middle of the night. We come home, and there's the promise to go sledding the next day. So here's the next day, and my father and our host go out to look at housing, where, different options for where we're going to live.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my mother, my middle brother Juno, and myself in this house, and you can't really leave boys alone for too long with nothing to do.
Bob knows about that.
I know about that one.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're, in the house. We probably have some toys that we brought with us from Brazil, but this sled is like the new thing.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, let's, go sledding. And the only thing to sled down is this carpeted staircase.
Perfect.
Which wasn't too bad, except for it was 2-tiered. So when you get to the bottom of the first
There's
tier,
a landing, right?
there's a landing, and then a 90-degree bend to the right. I remember like it was just yesterday. And then another maybe 3 or 4 steps. So we're at the top on the second floor, which is possibly 15 steps or so. And I sit in the front, and my partner in crime sits in the back. I look over my shoulder, and he's all smiles. So I know we're ready to go. I ask him to hold on to the handles, and I'm at the front, kind of like, those toboggan teams or like luge teams, right?
Yeah.
So
Cool
I'm
Runnings. Here we are.
there you go. Cool Runnings Brazil style. So I adjust to the front, and I pull us just far enough to get some momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
And Suze, next thing I know, we bottom out. And since I was in the front, my feet are through the wall.
Oh, there's a snow
Yeah.
story. Yeah, cool.
So luckily, neither of us were hurt. But once I get my feet and ankles back through the wall, and my mom hears the noise, man, she's like an angel.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Oh my goodness, are you all okay?" Yes, we were okay. And then the attention goes to the hole and to the 9 cats in the house, and them getting stuck between the walls.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, she had a little bit or a lot of bit of a panic, I'm sure, as she figured out how to barricade the cats until the owner got home and then explain it to the owner. But yeah, don't
Yeah.
leave young boys alone
Mm-hmm.
with nothing to do.
Right. And I would say that's true of young girls if you had me as your child. Okay. Don't
Me
leave
and
me
my
alone.
sister too. I
There
would
you
Yeah.
go.
say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parental supervision. Like when Bob was left alone, he sawed off all the backs, which I told on another podcast story. He sawed all the backs of their dining room chairs off.
Wow.
I mean, that took some time, and I wonder where were your parents?
Right?
I don't remember, but they weren't there.
Yes, obviously. Okay. And Bob has a story about his brother who was a little different. He didn't get in trouble.
He didn't get into too much trouble. No, we were 7 years apart. And
Okay.
I never really grew up with him. By the time he got started in high school, I was already out of the country in Panama. And he was emotionally challenged and intellectually challenged also. He had a fairly low IQ. So we weren't really on the same levels when it came to, talking about things or reading books. He was dyslexic also. But when I came back from the Peace Corps after 2 years in Panama, he had started driving. And it turned out that he was actually an excellent driver. He was a really good driver. He did car service to make some money. But one of the things he did with some friends of his, now you can remember this is the time before cell phones. People didn't have cell phones at all. What he did, he and several friends of his, they would patrol the streets and the highways looking for people who were in trouble. Like their cars would get stuck, or they ran out of gas, or the run off into a ditch or something like that. And they all had CB radios. This was the days of the CB radios. Breaker 9, whatever, I'm coming in. This is the Cottonmouth, or whatever you want to call it.
Cottonmouth.
Whatever. They came up with these names. And I came back from Panama, and I went out a couple of times with him. And I just became really so proud of him for doing that. Now, they didn't charge anybody, they just did it because it was
vigilantes.
It was something to do. Yeah. And I was very proud of him for having done something like that and helping to organize it. This was all in Brooklyn, by the way. So it was, they went into some tough neighborhoods, and they had these strange names for parts of the highways, like on the Belt Parkway. There'd be a big overpass, and they called that Top of the World.
Cool.
Breaker 9 were at the top of the world.
Nice.
And there was another section lined with bricks on the Belt Parkway, and that was called the Trench. So they had these strange names for just about every part, and if you knew the code, you knew where they were.
Nice.
Cool.
Very cool.
Did they have a name for their group?
They may have, but I don't think I ever knew. I don't think I ever knew it.
Okay. All right.
And Sensei, were these code names so no one else listening to the CB would swoop in and
I don't know if it was a secretive type of thing, but I think it was just something that they did just to know where everybody was. It sure saved a lot of time in terms of describing where they were. Instead of we're 12 miles north of this lamppost and
Mile marker 15.
Right. Cool.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a nice story. All right, so now we'll close. Thank you again for coming into our lives as well as being on the podcast and working together. I love couples who work together. It's so fun. We had a dinner together with a bunch of couples who work together, and that was really fun.
Yes.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please share this with a friend and subscribe where you listen to podcasts. Please support our efforts through Patreon at TheKnifeWife, and for all Terzuola goodness, go to terzuola.net. And remember, if you're not laughing, you're not living. Comments and questions can be made on Instagram at The KnifeWife Podcast or our Facebook group, The KnifeWife Podcast. And if you're a couple who work together and would like to be on our podcast, tell us about yourself with an email at eccentricsuz.com or terzuola.net.